Kia ora, welcome to this Facebook Live. My name is Lisa and I work on PlunketLine, and I'm a nurse. I have the amazing Trish here. Why don't you introduce yourself, Trish?
Tēnā koe, Lisa. Kia ora whānau. Ko Trish Higginson tuku ingoa. He ka mahi aho e whānau e whina Plunket. I'm a PlunketLine nurse and I've been with PlunketLine for just over 4 years now. Before that, I was a practice nurse in a rural general practice. And I am really passionate about helping whānau with all sorts of things to do with pēpi under 5. And sleep is a very big part of that. So thank you for joining us tonight. And Lisa will go through with you what we're going to cover in this kōrero.
Awesome. Thanks, Trish. Great introduction there. So as Trish said, we will be talking about sleep tonight. We will be talking about sleeping habits, expectations around sleep, sleep journals, why pēpi wake up at night or during the night, plans for when there is a bad night, because there will be, and support for parents and advice for whānau. All good. Okay, so let's start with the first question. Do you want to set the scene around pēpi sleeping habits, Trish?
I most certainly do. And as we said, it's a very big subject. And all babies, as we all know, are individual little human beings who have a lot of growing to do. So when they're first born, they need to have a lot of feeding day and night, and that's all very normal. They don't know how to sleep through the night. They don't even know what the night is, but they're going to develop what we call their circadian rhythm, which is also called their biological clock. And as they start to grow, they start to realize that nighttime is different. It's quiet, it's dark, mum doesn't talk to me as much, and their natural body rhythm starts to kick in. But we still need to allow for them to wake through the night several times right through the first couple of years of their life. Now, we know that babies, as we've said, are individual, and they all have their own little individual temperament or personality, and that really has a huge effect on how their sleep patterns are. That's why, as you'll know, if you've got more than one pēpi in your family, one may sleep differently completely to the rest. You might have one that sleeps a long time and others that wake more often, and that's absolutely normal. So we try to encourage whānau not to compare to other babies. It can be tough as a parent, and particularly if you're sleep deprived. But we need to focus on that little individual baby, what their needs are right now. And we know that with sleep, it's not a one size fits all. We can't say, okay, baby, this is where you're going to sleep and this is when you're going to sleep. Babies have different ideas.
Yeah, totally.
So and some babies do wake more than others. And, you know, that's normal. It doesn't have any sort of reflection on yourself as a parent.
Yeah, great points.
Be kind to yourself, whānau.
Yes.
Your babies are really, you're doing your best, and that's good enough.
Yeah, totally. Awesome. So what are some realistic expectations that parents and caregivers can have?
Yeah, absolutely. So waking and feeding at night is very normal, particularly in those first 2 to 3 months. We know that there's a lot of growing to do, and it's not just physical growth, it's brain development. And the nighttime feeding is what we call brain building. So they need that nurturing. This is the time where we're laying the foundations for future sleep and settling. So babies up to about 4 months of age, they'll fall asleep anywhere. A lot of the time they'll want to sleep on a parent or a caregiver because that's where they feel nice and safe and secure. Around about 4 months of age, they start to develop quite strong preferences for where they want to sleep. They're becoming much more aware of the world around them. They know that if they cry, that somebody will come and help them. So that's all very normal as well. So we want to be responsive to them as an individual little human being, which is what they are. And again, that can vary from pēpi to pēpi. What works for one whānau may not work for another, and that's okay. what you're doing at the beginning is you're getting your baby used to the world. You're starting to get to know them. They're starting to get to know you. And you're building what is really important is that secure attachment. And that's, as I said, laying the foundation for their future sleep and settling, for their future sense of security. And so this is a time where it's very important to be responsive to babies. And that's why we don't recommend leaving babies to cry it out. I'm sure all whānau have heard that. And that is not something that we recommend. We know that can be disruptive to that sense of secure attachment. So again, very much about building the brain development. We're not just nurturing our babies to grow physically. There's a lot of brain development going on. So it's you're going to figure it out with your baby, and you're going to find out what suits them, and they're going to find out where they feel comfortable. So changes to routines are really important. So, and we don't mean strict routines, flexible routines, but having that familiarity around sleep and settling, and the way that you interact with your baby. So good morning, it's morning now, we're going to get up and have a play and start the day. And then having bedtime wind down routines are also so important. If there are changes to routines, particularly around holiday times, Christmas is a big example. There's usually a lot of travelling, changes to whānau, different whānau coming around, starting school. So that's where those sleep associations can kick in. So we need to be aware that babies are very aware of their environment and quite sensitive to change in the environment. And that comes back to also that temperament of the individual baby. Some babies will be highly sensitive. Some will be just little dandelions that will happily float around with whoever, be wherever, sleep wherever. Others are quite sensitive to change. Have you noticed any sort of things like that? Because I know that you've got several children, Lisa. Have you found that?
Yeah, totally. From child 1 through to child 3, lots of differences. You know what, my first child, she slept through the night at 6 weeks, and then my second child didn't sleep until she was 2. So it's, you know, the difference is huge, and you try and do the same thing, but it's just, and the one that didn't sleep till she was 2, she's very observant, very nosy, inverted commas. She loves activities and, you know, being busy, and the other one's quite chilled out. And so temperament does affect their sleep. The other thing I've heard is during the routine of the nighttime bath is talking to your baby about the day, and sort of like debriefing with them about what they've done during the day, and it helps you to debrief as well, as a parent of what you've done, and that's part of, you know, winding down, like what you said, Trish, winding down and getting
totally.
ready.
I'm so pleased you raised that, Lisa. And as babies grow, we can add more into that bedtime wind down routine. And talking to your baby is so important, because when you're calm and you give your baby eye contact and talk to them, their brain waves will actually mimic yours. So bringing that calmness in and using those verbal cues around sleep, really important as well.
Yeah, totally. Cool. So the next question I have for you, Trish, is, so the first year of life is when you're laying the foundations for the future of sleep and routines, settling routines. This is an important time for bonding and attachment, where you as parents can help build sleep associations for pēpi. What are some of the ways that we can do this?
Great. So sleep associations are really great, and you'll soon figure out what works for your baby. And the more that we can do that in a way that's consistent and familiar with repetition, that's what babies love. They love predictability. They love to know what's coming up next, and that sense of connectedness to their primary caregiver. builds over those first few months. So things like having low lighting, having your bedtime wind down routine, adding layers into that as they grow. It might be a bath, a cuddle, a massage, and then pajamas or a sleep sack, a breastfeed or a bottle, and letting them know it's bedtime. It's time to sleep now. It's time to stay in bed, and having that nice, consistent sleep place for them. And sleep associations can be independent from parents, and they can also be parent dependent. So falling to sleep at the breast or falling asleep with cuddles and rocking is all absolutely valid and fine. And as babies grow, they can start to build those independent sleep and settling routines as well. So when we're connecting with pēpi by doing those things that they like feeding to sleep, rocking, etc., we're building those brain pathways for them, and that's incredibly important, particularly for little babies. And they'll come back to those things as they grow. Like they might like to sleep a certain way, they might like to be held a certain way, they might like to have a pacifier. A pacifier can be a really good sleep association as well, because little babies like to suck. They have a really strong need to suck, and sometimes they don't need feeding with that sucking. So establishing breastfeeding is really important, and the nighttime feeding is particularly important. Babies will get about 30% of their calories at night, and that's also the brain building time. Often babies will feed more effectively and for longer when they're drowsy, and that's also the time that prolactin levels are highest. So we want parents to know that feeding at night is normal, and as they grow, they'll gradually drop those night feeds when they're ready. We can provide the environment for sleep and be supportive, but babies will sleep through that golden goal that some parents have of babies sleeping through the night, which we all really want by the time they're a little bit older. They'll do it when they're developmentally ready, and we can provide the environment of support around that. Some whānau want to have certain tips around sleep, which there are out there, and you can get them by contacting PlunketLine and booking a sleep consult. We do video consults, and then we can talk to you about it, your individual whānau needs and how we can help, and some suggestions. There's a few things that you can do, like getting some exposure to morning sunlight, and what that can do is boost melatonin, which is your sleep hormone. You could just have like a regular wake up time, as not so much when babies are really little, but as they grow, it's really important for the biological rhythm or the circadian rhythm to have a regular bedtime and a regular wake time, and that helps the body clock to adjust. If you're wanting to move that bedtime, for example, little babies often will feed a lot in the evening and stay up quite late, often not going to bed till 9, 10 or even 11 at night, and then they'll tend to start to have a long stretch when they're ready. So what you can do if you want to start to bring that bedtime forward as they grow is move the bedtime by 15 minutes. So for example, if you're getting them into bed at 10, then you think that they're ready to start to go a bit earlier, you can bring the bedtime forward to 9:45 for 3 or 4 days, and then again go to 9:30 when they've adjusted to that, and that allows their body clock to adjust. So there's all those things, and as I said, individual to each whānau. So if you want to contact PlunketLine to book a consult, our support team will be putting a link in the chat, and just call us on PlunketLine 0800 933 922. So day and night sleeps will vary between babies, length of sleeps will vary. We often hear the phrase wake windows. So wake windows for babies will be about 45 minutes. And sometimes you can link their sleep cycles by rocking, soothing. We all know babies love a bit of motion, don't they? How many of us have taken babies for walks and prams, come back thinking, yep, they're nice and sleepy, stop the pram, and the eyes go open.
It's so true.
Babies also have a high level of what we call REM sleep, which is light sleep. So often you'll see the eyes move around, and they're really fascinating to watch, aren't they, when they do that?
Yeah, totally, yeah.
And sometimes we think, oh, they're awake, but they're not really. They might even make noise. So what we recommend is just picking them up from the sleep when they start to really wake up and let you know that they're ready. But often when they're doing that REM, that light sleep, they'll link the sleep cycles themselves and they'll just fall asleep again. So they are absolutely fascinating little creatures, aren't they?
Yeah.
Do you
Cool.
have anything that you want to add to that bedtime sleep association?
No, I think you covered it, actually. I think it's really good.
It is a very individual thing. And
it is, yeah. And that's what I say to parents as well, is that sort of whatever works for you and your family is really important. Yeah.
That is so true. And we really don't want Pano to feel any pressure. You know, one thing you will find when you have a baby, and we've all experienced this, is you get a lot of advice and suggestions, and some of that is not really that helpful or not really wanted. So it's really important to follow your instinct. What works for your whānau is absolutely fine. And there are some really good tools and tips we can pop in the chat to help you and support you. And we do urge you, if you're wanting help with sleep, to call PlunketLine and talk to one of our Plunket nurses or ask to book a sleep consult.
Yeah. Great. Awesome. Okay. So a big question. What are some of the reasons why pēpi wake?
Yeah, that is a very big question. And it's really important for us to understand that babies only ask for what they need day and night. So it's really important we respond to them because they're completely vulnerable. For example, for the first 2 years of life, babies are entirely dependent on us for their fluid intake, which is huge when you think about it. Like, we want to have a drink of water, we go and get a drink of water. They're thirsty, they need to let us know that they need it, and they'll do that by crying or talking when they're ready to talk. But again, it's a really vulnerable age. So it's important to respond to babies at night if they wake, if they cry, and there can be several reasons for their waking. They could be unwell, they may have a fever, or they may have a cold or a flu or a rash or something that needs attending to. They may be teething. Teething has a big impact on sleep, and some babies do suffer with teething and the discomfort from that quite severely. So it's important to make sure that we're ruling out that there's no pain. And feeding at night, again, as we said before, it is valid and it's important for their brain and their body and their physical development. Babies also, as they start to get older, they can start to develop what we call separation anxiety. So with that little brain that's developing and growing so much, and it's exponential, the growth in the first year to 2 years, they start to understand that they feel really safe. That's my mum. She feeds me. She looks after me. She makes my lunch. I feel safe. I feel warm. I feel connected. So I want to spend more time with her. And sometimes I don't feel right, so I want to be close to her and I want to smell her skin and touch her. And that can happen at night too. So and even with toddlers, they might go through a stage of sleep regression where they used to sleep or settle in their own bed and they're not doing it anymore. So there may be some separation anxiety. And that is a valid emotion for babies. So we need to do what we can to keep up that connectedness and support them through that. Yeah. So there are many things, and it's really important that we figure it out. And again, that's where we can help you. Can you think of anything to add to that, Lisa?
What about, like things like development, like learning to crawl, learning to roll over, maybe moving around a bit more. That can have a effect on them as well.
It sure can. And I'm so pleased you did that, because waking at night is very much linked into developmental progress. So that's something to be aware of.
Yeah. And like Trish said, please don't hesitate to call us as well and have a chat with us. Sometimes it's just a conversation and us sort of talking about what's going on for you, for the for your pēpi and sort of working it out. And yeah, it's really good to discuss and sort of have a bit of a kōrero around it is really helpful.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
And also quite often just to know that what you're going through is normal for your baby.
Yeah, totally.
And so important to have your whānau on board, your team, your partner, your village to support you.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Bad nights. They do happen, as much as we don't want them to, and as much as we try to avoid them. What advice would you give around getting through these bad nights?
Yeah. So again, as we just mentioned, having your village, having a plan, having your support, a safety plan, always have a plan about what to do if things are going belly up, because we all know that there can be really hard nights with children. And if we're tired and sleep deprived and it's 3 a.m., there's a crying baby, you've fed them, you've cuddled them, you're just at your wit's end, you need a plan. And even a written plan, ring PlunketLine or get your partner to take over so you can have a little brain break for 5 or 10 minutes. Knowing what to do and planning it in advance is so important. If you had a bad night with your baby, tap into your village, your whānau, whether it be grandparents or anyone that can come and just sit with the baby for an hour so you can have a sleep during the day. Having those little bits of sleep to catch up can be really beneficial. Power naps are incredibly refreshing. So, you know, that is something to really think of. Who can you call on when you need to? Because when babies are crying, that's the highest risk time for shaken baby syndrome. And it's something that's frightening, and we never want to see that happen to someone. All you have to do is reach out, pick up the phone, call PlunketLine. A plan in advance helps you know what to do when emotions are heightened. So what would that look like? You can have a written plan. You might have it in your iPhone, or you might even print it out and put it on your wall in the nursery. Have a list of phone numbers you can call or people you can call on. You know, we never want people or whānau to feel like they're alone. And I know, and you'll know this too, Lisa, we get a lot of calls on PlunketLine where people ring, the baby's been crying, and hey, suddenly when you ring PlunketLine, the baby stops crying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Have you found that?
Yes, like 95%.
Yeah,
Probably
I had
the
one
baby
last
will
night.
stop. Yeah.
I had one last night, and that's the other thing that I really want to mention is the peak age for crying and unsoothable crying is around 6 to 8 weeks. And you'll have this baby that's come home from hospital, they're zonked out from being born, and they're not really much aware of what's going on. And then they start to become more aware, and they realize that when they cry, they get attention, and their crying is their voice. So often we interpret babies crying as something wrong or they're in pain. And yes, we absolutely do need to rule that out. But we also know that crying is a baby's voice. That's what they do. And when they get to about 12 to 14 weeks, the crying becomes more purposeful. And the crying is designed to make us act.
Yeah.
So if we can say to babies have different types of cries, and you'll start to know what they are as they grow. So they might have a hunger cry, they might have a tired cry, or they might just have what I call a cave baby cry. Imagine your baby is in a cave back in the caveman days, and there's a saber-toothed tiger there. The baby's going to cry so that they get picked up.
Yeah.
So if we can rationalize the crying as meaningful rather than thinking it means there's something wrong, you know, that can sometimes help us.
Yeah. Cool. All right. Another question. What advice would you give to parents and caregivers so that everyone is supported as best as possible?
So ensuring that parents, especially the mama who's usually the one doing the feeding and doing it hard day and night, getting enough sleep, particularly in that newborn period. So making sure that you have good nutrition, have some snacks, by your breastfeeding station. Have people bring Kai over, pre-prepared meals, snacks, smoothies, protein shakes, muesli bars. You know, you really need extra calories when you're breastfeeding at 500 to 600 calories per day per baby. And just having a plan, talking to your partner, making sure you're on the same page. And the separation anxiety is hard because as parents, we often feel touched out. You know, we can't leave the baby much at all when they get a little bit older because they like to see you. We can't even go to the bathroom without them wanting us. So, you know that your baby's going to be all right, that they know that you will come back. And things that can help with separation anxiety is games like peekaboo. And peekaboo teaches them that when they can't see you, you are going to come back again. So that's a really empowering one for babies.
Yeah.
Sticking to your sleep routine, and again, that can be flexible. It will change as the baby grows, but keeping up that consistency, your verbal cues. It's time to sleep, baby. It's time to stay in bed. Patting, tapping, cuddling, rocking. And then as they start to grow, you can introduce the independent settling technique. So putting them in their cot and keeping on patting, giving them the pacifier. And then if they cry, pick them up, do that again, rinse and repeat. If they don't settle when you do those things, it doesn't mean it's not working. It means that you've done 5-10 minutes of really good practice. And then you can go back to the next thing, which might be a feed. And as they grow over time, again, that familiarity and repetition is really good. And then for whānau that want to support parents with newborns, the most helpful thing you can do is ask them what they need. Ask the mum, what do you need? How can I help? Go around to visit, hang out the washing, fold the washing, do the vacuuming, and all of those things, and spending time not just going for the baby, but putting your arms around the mama and the baby. How can I help you today? How are you? What do you need? Is so important.
Yeah, so cool. We've got a question here. My 12-week-old wakes up many times at night, mostly not for feeds but for comfort, i.e. giving her a dummy or settling her to will make her fall back asleep. This is happening multiple times a night and we don't know if there's anything else we can do to improve. We're keeping a close eye on her nap times too. Also, she's been struggling to nap, and when she does it, they're all cat naps. Is this just a phase, or is there anything I can do to help her sleep better day and night?
Ka pai, April. Thank you for asking that patai of us. So it all sounds very normal. 12 weeks is still a very little baby. There's still a lot of growing and developing going on there. It sounds like you're doing a wonderful job of being responsive to your baby. And we need to remember that comfort is important to babies just as much as milk is. And keep going with the consistency. Make sure that she is having a feed if she needs one. And contact napping can be really, really important and helpful for babies. Often they'll sleep longer with a contact nap, and that's absolutely fine. I would suggest, April, that you contact PlunketLine if you're wanting help with sleep and ask to book a sleep consult. I think that would be a really helpful thing for you to do, so that, you know, there's a lot of things going on there. But absolutely sounds very normal for a 12-week-old.
I agree. So Nellie has a question. Would leaving a CD player full of songs help your baby sleep?
So that's a really good patai as well. So a lot of parents use white noise or rain noise or heartbeat noise. And I think the thing with any type of music or noise like that is to make sure that the volume is at the right level. If you've ever listened to white noise yourself, if it's not at the right volume, if it's a little bit too loud, it can be more disruptive. So you want to have it at quite a low volume. And again, it can be a really good sleep association for babies.
Yeah. Cool. Another question, Kirsten. Thank you. My 6-week-old wakes up every time I put him down in the cot once he's asleep for a nap during the day. So we end up contact napping a lot. I'm sure this is pretty normal for this age, but is there anything that can be done to help him stay asleep in the cot, or is it just a matter of time, really?
Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful question, Kirsten. 6 weeks old. Wow, very new baby. And contact napping is fantastic. That's so good for his brain development and building that connectedness with you. So, yes, very normal. As I said before, it's in the first sort of newborn to 4 months, they really will sleep anywhere most of the time. If your baby's wanting to be picked up, he's needing that more connection and that security of being close to you, which is important for building that secure attachment. You can start to practice cot settling, and you can do that anytime. We will put a link in the chat on some tips on how to do this. But yeah, just keep being responsive to your baby, and in time, as you start to build those sleep associations and as he grows and becomes more aware, hopefully when he's ready, he will start to settle in the cot.
Awesome. Another question. Those some good ones.
Yeah.
How long after feeding can you lay baby back down to sleep? Just after they burp, or question mark?
Well, that again is a very individual thing, Jean. So what suits you? It's nice when you fed a baby to hold them close and keep them close to you. If you're breastfeeding, sometimes they like to sleep on the breast. That's a really nice place to be for babies, and it's also really brain building and good for connectedness. Breast milk is much more than milk. Breastfeeding is much more than just feeding your baby. It's a lot about nurturing and building those neural pathways. And we're going to put a link in the chat for a really good article on that, which is entitled Nursing is Much More Than Milk. If you're worried about spilling, you can keep them upright for about 20 minutes after a feed if they're a refluxy baby. But again, spilling is quite normal for babies, particularly little babies, because the little muscle in the esophagus doesn't have quite the tone, and also they're not upright. So if you have concerns about spilling or want to look into that further, just give us a call on PlunketLine.
Awesome. I have a question from Rebecca. Congratulations on your little baby, Rebecca. My 10-day-old loves to sleep in the capsule. Why? They say it's important not to let them sleep too long in a capsule. Safe sleep alert here. Yes.
Yes, safe sleep is a big subject, and we do talk about that a lot, and for good reason. So the reason we don't recommend babies sleeping in the capsule is because they're not lying flat in the capsule, and their airway, if you compare it to a straw, we want it to be like this. We don't want it to be like that. And so when they're in the capsule, their little heads will bobble over to the side, and that can compromise their airway. So yeah, really important to take baby out of the capsule. You might find that if your baby, you may already be doing this, Rebecca, but you can swaddle your baby to help them get that sense of safety and security. Little babies love to be swaddled, and most of them respond really well to that, or just contact napping with them on you. Absolutely wonderful. 10 days old. How gorgeous.
Yeah. And I think from memory, we do have a Safe Sleep Facebook live from last year, if you want to check that out as well.
Right. Excellent.
Cool. From Ella, my baby is 7 weeks and is on the 97th percentile weight. So chunky boy, yes. He has started not sleeping for long stretches during some days and then sleeping for way longer periods on other days. I keep routine pretty consistent, and nights we have no issues. Should I be waking him up during the day during those long sleep cycles? How much sleep is too much sleep in a 24-hour cycle?
Wonderful.
7 weeks.
Yes. Oh, wonderful. Thank you for your pate, Ella. So it sounds like your baby is going through growth spurts, and the days when he's awake more, he's wanting to feed more. And then his circadian rhythm, his biological clock is kicked in at night and he's sleeping a bit longer. So you just keep doing what you're doing. It sounds like it's going really well. I wouldn't wake him up because it sounds like he's already figured out when he needs to feed and he's getting those really good sleeps in between. There's not really too much sleep for a baby. As we said earlier, every baby's an individual, and some babies will sleep for a long time, like Lisa's oldest child.
Yes.
Yeah. And my second oldest was a great sleeper, but again, very much linked to temperament. So your baby is obviously quite a calm temperament. And as long as he's getting about 6 wet nappies over 24 hours, and it certainly sounds like he's growing well, he's on the 97th centile, so we don't need to worry about waking him. He'll wake and sleep and ask for food independently. He's well on his way.
Yeah, great job. Another question, my newborn has reached their birth weight. Do we wake the baby up every 2 to 3 hours to feed in the middle of the night, or wait until they wake or demand it?
Yes. So I'm not sure how old your newborn is, Pac, but if you are still under the midwife, I would talk to your midwife because your baby's individual needs, or we don't have enough information there to give you advice on that. But generally, what happens with babies is they can drop their weight initially, and that's normal. And then once they start to gain weight and start to feed on demand and feed independently, they shouldn't need to be woken for a feed. But it all depends what their weight gain's like, what their development is like, and also the age, because there's quite a difference between a 1 week old and a 6 week old. So that might be something to talk to your midwife about if you're still under the midwife, or talk to your Plunket nurse, or give us a call on PlunketLine.
Cool. Another question. I have an 8-week-old. He has started refusing sleep, won't sleep unless on me or in bed with me. Any tips to help?
Yes, yeah. So again, we need to have a bit more information. It is very normal for babies to go through these cycles of growth spurts. It may be that your baby's having a bit of a growth spurt, and if he's just sleeping on you, you can keep practicing the cot settling. We don't recommend bed sharing. If you do have baby in bed with you, it's important to be safe around that and try not to fall asleep, particularly if you're sitting on a chair with baby. But yeah, again, more information would be needed. So perhaps it would help to give PlunketLine a call for you, Xanthi.
Yeah. Awesome. This is some really great questions.
Yes.
Yeah. How do we go about settling a teething baby to sleep?
Oh, yes, that's a really big question. So some babies really suffer with teething pain. And again, going back to this being vulnerable time, babies depend on us totally. So we need to be aware. If they've got sore gums, we can use teething gel. We can maybe give them some Pamol or ibuprofen if it's prescribed by the doctor. It depends on the individual baby, and keep to those sleep and settling routines. Generally, if they're waking up with teething pain and they're not responding to breastfeeding or cuddles and they look like they're really in discomfort, it's really appropriate to give a dose of Pamol or ibuprofen. So that would be another thing where we'd need a little bit more information. We do have some very good tips on teething and managing teething on our website at plunket.org.nz, and we can get our support team to put a link in the chat for that.
Yeah. Taylor's got a question. Is it normal for a 3-month-old to be sleepy in some periods of the day?
Yes, it can be. Babies at this age will start to stretch out the time between their feeds. And if your baby's going to sleep and needing that sleep, that's absolutely fine. And just again, make sure that there's a good amount of wet nappies, about 4 to 6 wet nappies over 24 hours, and that baby's growing and starting to reach their milestones.
Cool. Oh, another one. I have a mulberry silk handkerchief bunny for my baby. It has long ears. Should I be concerned leaving it in his cot with him? Could it be a choking hazard? He's 8 months old.
Yeah, so that's a really good pātai, Mary Ann. And again, around that safe sleep advice, we don't recommend having toys or anything in the cot that's got potential for being able to wrap around baby's finger or neck, suffocation risk. So I'm not sure how long the ears are. Having said that, yeah, it is something that if he likes to take into the cot with him, maybe you could take it out once he's asleep. But again, we would need to have more information around that particular toy. But there are some safe sleep guidelines on the plunket.org.nz website as well.
Yeah. Is a 3-month-old able to go 9 hours without a feed at night? I didn't mean to sleep through my alarm, but I did on accident.
Oh, Tyler, gosh, I remember that feeling when you wake up with a fright and realise that the baby hasn't woken up for a while. What's going on?
Same here.
Oh, gosh. So can really relate to that. So at 3 months of age, depending on the baby's individual growth pattern, I don't think you would need to wake them for a feed. They would probably wake at that age independently if they need one. If they're starting to sleep longer, then I think it's fine. But again, more advice is needed because all babies are individuals. So I'm not sure what your particular circumstances are, Tyler. But as long as your baby's growing and developing well, then I don't think you would need to wake them at night for a feed.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it sounded like you needed some good sleep, Taylor. So well done.
Yes.
Melanie's got a question. My 9-month-old is suddenly waking 3 to 4 times a night. She used to sleep through the night. She's been like this for weeks now. Will she grow out of it?
Yes, and that is a very common question that we get a lot of calls about on PlunketLine. Babies, and as we said before, wake for many reasons. Is she teething? Is she unwell? Sometimes babies will wake at night because they have ear pain. Ear pain is often worse at night, so it's always worth getting them checked out to make sure there's nothing else going on. Possibly teething. Is she on solids? How much solids is she having? So she's sort of at the age where you're starting to bring in solids now. So I think it would be really helpful, Melanie, if you gave PlunketLine a call. Yes, she will grow out of it when she's ready. As we said before, babies only know how to ask for what they need. So responding to her in a way that's consistent, letting her know that you're there, letting her have a drink if she needs it. But again, if you need support with this, give us a call on PlunketLine or talk to your Plunket nurse. It all sounds quite normal.
Yeah. Vanessa, hi, my baby is 15 months old. She has never been a great sleeper, unfortunately, but it's been a month now that at least she falls asleep by herself without crying, does one nap a day from 11:30 to 1:30 average, but still wakes up overnight, usually around 3 a.m. and screams hysterically like she would have nightmares. So I need to go and settle her down 1 to 2 times in the second part of the night. And Dad used to be able to help, but now she refuses to go, as cries even more and wants me only. Is it normal, or what could I do to help her not waking up like that, screaming and crying hard?
Yeah. Oh, Vanessa, it sounds like you've had a lot going on, and I really do sympathise. It's tough when you're not getting sleep. It sounds to me like your little baby is having a little bit of separation anxiety. So what we would suggest in this situation is make sure there's nothing else going on. Is she having pain with teething? Is she having ear pain? I don't know whether you've already taken her to the doctor to get checked out, but that can help just to rule it out. Most of the time it's not anything like that. But if it's separation anxiety, we do have a link to an excellent sleep webinar which has a video attached that you can look at, and it's got great tips around that. I would also recommend that you ring us on PlunketLine and book a sleep consult, and then we can look at your individual whānau needs and hopefully help you with this. But it will get better. I think it's wonderful that you are responding so well to your baby and you're giving her that comfort and reassurance. And, you know, just know that the work that you're doing as her mum is going to pay off, because she's obviously got a really good secure attachment with you.
Yeah. Chelsea, I'm due in April. Congratulations with my first baby. How would you set up a good sleep routine? What would a general newborn sleep routine look like?
Wow. So it's all changing very much in the first few months, as we mentioned earlier, Chelsea. So really responsiveness, regular feeding, cuddles, having a bassinet, having a pēpi pod. We've got some really great tips on our Plunket website. We've got a link on there to a sleep and settling course, which you can go into, and it's got several modules which cover everything that we recommend you look at around sleep. And I think that would be a really valuable one for you to look at before your baby comes along. And how exciting for you. And it's great that you're thinking about these things now.
Absolutely. Awesome. Thank you so much for all the pātai. It's been really awesome hearing from you all. And I just want to thank Trish for joining us tonight. You've been amazing, amazing lady. And thank you to everybody that has listened tonight. Trish, would you like to say anything else?
Oh, kia ora, Lisa. Thank you. It's been wonderful to share this time and kōrero with you. You know, we all think that we know it all before we have babies, but they come along and they turn our worlds upside down. So I think my main message to whānau would be, look at your baby, look at the baby in front of you. What are their needs right now? What are their needs in this moment? How can I respond to them in a way that's going to support them? Because little pēpi have so much growing to do, and remember about that brain development as well. And it does seem a lot. It's a hard time, but it won't be forever. And you're building those foundations now, which is so important.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you very much. Cool. That's the end of our live chat. Take care, everybody.
Bye, hon.